Project management concepts may seem tough at times, but not to worry. You have a coach who makes it as easy as ABC. Here he is to set things straight for you. Your friend Phil.
The PMBOK Guide is quite an interesting book. A lot of people say it is very valuable, whereas some other people say it's hard to read. So I'm going to be going through the PMBOK Guide with my friends on social media. Those of you on YouTube and those of you on Facebook, the noise levels have become increasingly high. So what I'm going to do is walk through these processes with you bit by bit. This could be some days or months, who knows? Depends on where we find ourselves, but we're going to be talking about a project. And the project that I have to talk about was recommended to me by one of our PMP exam bootcamp students. So Maribel, you gave me the idea to work on a project revolving around a playground. That's right, a playground. So what we're going to do is pretty much look at various ideas, concepts in project management, and we are going to marry them up with this concept of creating a playground, which I think is a brilliant idea. So in the world of project management, just think about it. What happens first? What happens next? That's how I want you to be thinking. So this playground, just imagine that the children in a particular neighborhood have requested several times that they would like a playground. However, it has been a long time coming, for years and years. Finally, the city decided to listen to the cries of these kids, and they have contracted out this endeavor to a firm. So the project is to develop, create, whatever you want to call it, a playground for kids to enjoy themselves, have fun. It's going to be a family hangout, and it's going to add a lot of value to the residents in this place. So let's open up the PMBOK Guide and try to understand, if this were to be the case, where would it all start? Well, it starts from Chapter 1, as you know. What is a project? It's a short-term endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. And if you take a look at page 1, well, they ain't forgotten the kids there. They got a children's book, the publication of a children's book. If the publication of a children's book could be looked at as a project, then it tells you a playground being developed is also a project. It's a short-term endeavor as well. So understanding the definitions in chapter 1, the common vocabulary and all that stuff is important for the exam. But when you take a look at why we take on projects, what you're going to observe on page 6 is that projects are undertaken to deliver value, 1, and 2, projects are undertaken to move a firm, a company, an entity, a customer, whatever that entity might be, from a current state to a future state. So I want you to keep track of this very important thought. Projects are undertaken to move a company, a firm, from a current state to a future state. What do we mean by current state? Current state is where the company or the entity or the customer, whoever it is, where they currently are in terms of their aspirations or what they want to get done. So right now, these folks are without a park. Standard of living in terms of their kids having fun is pretty dismal, it's pretty low. So what we want to do is take them from their current state to their future state. Now, as you move beyond that, you realize reasons for a project being authorized on page 9. So you've got new technology, competitive forces, on and on. But can you identify what this would be? A new park for kids? What would it be? Remember, it's not just the kids. It could also add value to the family, could add value to their parents, could create new synergies between kids in a positive manner, can be the location for tournaments and games and interactions. See? So towards the bottom, you see social need and environmental considerations. So which of those would it most likely be, or would it be a stakeholder demand? You see, from this point of view, we could look at this as being majority a social need of sorts. So the stakeholders, the stakeholder demands, well, the stakeholder is the public, the people in this area. See? So as you read the PMBOK guide, what I would like you to do is to marry whatever you are reading to a real project. The next page, the importance of project management. Why would we need a project manager on a job like this? All those reasons: to meet the business objectives, to meet stakeholder expectations, so on and so forth. And if you keep on moving the pages, you realize the definitions of program management. This could be part of a larger program. It could be to develop parks across the entire state. It could be another money-making venture that will give people jobs. So these parks could be state-of-the-art. And to get into those parks, a fee may be required. Or maybe become a member for the year and that kind of thing. And you've got people to man it and run it. Portfolio management is also something else. So you might end up having a portfolio of these state-of-the-art parks. And all these definitions you see from chapters 1 to 3, without going into all the minutiae, all this stuff is very relevant to project management. Chapter 2, the environment in which projects operate, being aware of the political environment. You know, sometimes in a political environment that's volatile, this project could be shut down in the blink of an eye. Someone new comes into power, that's it. So you should be aware of what is being spoken about, the environment in which projects operate, and beyond that, talking about leadership and how it comes into play with management. Chapter 3, very, very, very important. So that takes us to chapter 4, okay, which is where all of this discussion about this park is going to begin to unfold. But before we hit this topic about integration and before we begin fleshing out the different processes, which is what you expect, I wanted to call your attention to very important pages here. Going back to chapter 1, we have page 28, which talks about tailoring. Tailoring the project, or tailoring the application of the project management tools and techniques, tailoring that to the specific project. It says, usually project managers apply a project management methodology to their work. A methodology is a system of practices, techniques, procedures, and rules used by those who work in a discipline. This definition makes it clear that this guide itself is not a methodology. So I know a lot of people talk about, oh, the PMBOK guide, methodology. No, the PMBOK guide is not a methodology. The PMBOK guide is a framework. It's a framework because it doesn't give you a cookie cutter way of doing anything. It's a potpourri of many things. It says, this guide, the standard for project management, are recommended references for tailoring. This guide and the standard for project management are recommended references for tailoring because these standard documents identify the subset of project management body of knowledge that is generally recognized as good practice. Good practice does not mean that the knowledge described should always be applied uniformly to all projects. Specific methodology recommendations are outside the scope of this guide. Project management methodologies may be developed by experts within the firm, purchased from vendors, obtained from professional associations, or acquired from government agencies. So what they're trying to tell you is, do not take this and put it on your head like you're carrying the cross of project management. No, you're not. You do not need to do everything in the book in a blind fashion. Okay? You do not need to do that. What you do need to do is find out what is most relevant to your project and use that on your projects instead of trying to throw the entire kitchen sink at your project. Okay? And when I say throw the entire kitchen sink, I'm talking about doing everything possible in the PMBOK guide. No, that doesn't make sense. Take what is most relevant and do it. Okay? Now, still along these lines, two very important business documents. One is the project business case, and two is the project benefits management plan. So what is a business case? It's a documented economic feasibility study used to establish the validity of the project. Why should we do this project? Because here are the reasons. Standard and quality of life and game and play for kids is going to increase. Families are going to be able to interact, so on and so forth. This is also going to give jobs to people in the community. Make a case for it. That's your project business case. So it should highlight the economic aspects of the solution. People should be able to read it, see it, and understand why this thing is being done. All right? So when you think about this, I want you to remember that this business case is very, very relevant. Okay? Go read up the business case and imagine a business case being made where this project is concerned. Okay? Now, you might say, but Phil, where do I start with? I don't have a template for the business case, so on and so forth. I want to show you a website where you can get a lot of these templates and you can modify them and you can tailor them to suit whatever you want to work on. This website, I've talked about it so many times on this channel. You should go to www.tiny.c for Charlie, /Sigma PMO. So take a look right here. I will show you what that website will look like. So if you go to tiny.cc /Sigma PMO, you encounter this page. And this page is the PMO portal page for the CDC. Now, if you scroll down the page, you see two business cases. You see a business case and a business case light. Let's click on the business case. Let's open it up. Let's see what's in it. So you can see this is a Word doc. And this is what it will look like. And if you look at the table of contents, without us getting too deep into this specific business case, you can see that it has a breakdown of its purpose, why we creating this document, a description of the project at hand, high-level business impact, how will this impact the business? If you go to section 8 there, it says, outline at a high level what business functions or process may be impacted and how by the project for it to be successfully implemented. So what they're pretty much saying is explain the impact this will have on the business. Now, in this case, explain the impact that this project will have on the community. So if we do this project, what is the benefit? If we don't do this project, what is the downside of not doing this project? That's what you need to be thinking of. And then it goes into an analysis of alternatives, analyzing the alternatives that exist, build versus buy, outsource, commercial, off the shelf. How are we going to get this done? You know, are we going to be responsible for all the coordination? Do we want to use a boot arrangement, BOOT, or a design build or turnkey? And all of these are different flavors of contractual arrangements or delivery arrangements. And you can see an alternatives analysis example shows the cost, the money coming in, the net benefit. Here you've got the net present value, the IRR, also identified for the calculations given, the discount rate as well, and the total ROI. And then you've got these alternatives. See? So alternatives A, B, C, and D, they should all be broken down. And whoever reads this, whoever looks at this document should be coming away with an understanding of why should we authorize this? What do we stand to lose by not authorizing this project? That needs to be answered very clearly in this business case. Now, in addition to the business case, there is such a thing called a benefits management plan. Now, you don't see the benefits management plan on the CDC website. It's not there. But there are examples of benefits management plans. The PMI has become somewhat of a benefits management plan advocate, which makes sense because when you carry out a project, you really want to reap the benefits. What good is it carrying out a plan or carrying out a project and not reaping the benefits that you set out to? That's why you have a benefits management plan. And if you search well enough on the PMI website, you'll come across some of the documentation and the breakdown of this. So I'll just show you a few here really quickly. So over here you can see the PMI website and an article on project benefit management. See that? So there's a lot of good information to read up on it. If you're liking in information, or just open up your good old PMBOK guide, you know, read the PMBOK guide for what exactly this is, you know. Also here as part of PMI's library, they have other documentation, which I'll show you shortly, about the Benefits Realization Management Framework. Now this is actually free, but it makes good reading for anyone that wants to know how benefits realization works. So identify the benefits to determine whether project programs and portfolios can produce the intended business results. You first of all want to check those out. Then execute benefits. So execute benefits management to minimize risks to future benefits and maximize the opportunity to gain additional benefits. Then sustain the benefits to ensure that whatever the project or program produces continues to create value. And here you've got some glossary of terms. You've got the benefits realization plan. You've got the benefits register, collection of the benefits, so on and so forth. And this is all broken down into some finer detail that you can go through. So this guides you on how you can actually realize benefits on your project. For those project managers that are new to this, I would say download the document, take a look at the questions that they've given you out here to answer, and the practices that enable you to realize the benefits. So it's broken down into these categories. Identify, are the benefits aligned with the organization's strategic goals? Are the benefits tangible? So on and so forth. And then it goes into execute. Have the expected benefits been clearly communicated to key stakeholders involved with the delivery? Does the project or program team understand how project level outputs contribute to business benefits? You see, if you're getting no's to these questions, these are not good signs. So whenever you're embarking on a project, even a playground project, you want to make sure those community leaders understand the importance of the project. The benefits, it says, have the benefits, tangible, intangible, short-term and long-term, been optimized? This is how you sustain. So the PMI has given you a very solid framework here, which should be used not just at the beginning of the project, but even beyond the project. You want to make sure that you realize the benefits. Otherwise, you build a park and it falls apart. Or you build a park and no one visits the park that often. It becomes like one of those white elephant projects. You don't want that to happen. So that's why I'm stressing the importance of the business case and the benefits management plan. You want to make sure you think about both of those as you begin to work on the project. Okay? So with that, we can head on down to chapter 4, where we begin to put together the project charter and where we begin to flesh out the project in more detail. So I talked about the business case, I talked about the benefits management plan. Well, think about it. For what you're working on, putting this playground together for these kids, you really do want to solidify your initiating, your planning, you want executing to be solid, you want your monitoring and controlling to be all mapped out, and closing the project or closing out each phase of the project. Okay? So if you follow me to section 4.1 in the PMBOK guide, this is the very beginning. Section 4.1 is develop project charter. So when you think about it, you take a look at page 75. It says develop project charter is a process of developing a document that formally authorizes the existence of a project and provides the project manager with the authority to apply organizational resources to project activities. Key benefit of this is it provides a direct link between the project and the why behind the project. So if you take a look at a project charter, it should tell you why the project is being authorized, how it links back to the strategic objectives of the city. Why are you building this park? What exactly is your objective? What do you think you can gain from this? What do we stand to gain? Why are we putting taxpayer money into this? What are we looking to achieve? That is really what your project charter is going to do. You see, it provides a direct link between the project and the strategic objectives of the organization, creates a formal record of the project, and shows organizational commitment. That's really what you're looking for, that commitment factor. So if your project is going to succeed, you want that back-in from senior management. So important to have that back-in. See? It says this process is performed once or at predefined points in the project. So it can happen once or it can happen at various points. Now, getting into the nitty-gritty of Develop Project Charter, the first thing you find as an input to this process is business documents. See? And if you've got an old copy like I have, you actually see mention being made of the benefits management plan. And I don't know why they took it out, but I think it's a valid addition to the business case. So when you boil down Develop Project Charter, when you really think about it, when you really analyze what you're doing is putting together all of the reasonings for the project. Why are we doing this project? What do we stand to gain? What are the risks involved? So on and so forth. So without much ado, let us take a look at what the CDC have out here for the development of the project charter. So if we go to this tab right here, and you guys follow me, take a look, you can see, I hope you've got that link, tiny.cc, that's tiny.cc/sigma, SIGMA PMO. So if you go here, what do you see? Charter. Let's click on that. And let's click on that to download the Word version. So as you're working on this project, as you're embarking on this project to create this lovely park, this place that kids are just gonna love and everyone's gonna be happy with, as you're working on this, you need to craft a document that will guide you to success. You see, you don't just want to be stabbing in the dark. You want to know where you're going and what you're doing. And this is the document that is going to kick this off properly. That's why this is an initiating document. See? So if you take a look at the contents, it tells you why this charter is important, what's its purpose. And then it goes into the project and product overview. So anyone coming on the project newly, they can go to page 5 of this document and see, oh, this is why we're working on the project. You see, it says, the description should answer the who, what, when, and where in a concise manner. It should also state the estimated project duration and the estimated project budget. See that? So if you go back to the table of contents, you see in addition to that, the duration, the scope, all at a high level. What are the major requirements? What are the major deliverables? So on and so forth. All of this stuff is broken down. The budget estimate at a high level alternatives analysis, assumptions and constraints and risks at a high level, project organization. So this document, you're really trying to capture the essence of the project, not the deep details, but at a suitable enough level, you're trying to capture why the team should be working on this. So by the time anyone goes through it, they truly understand, oh, that's why we're working on this project. That's what we're trying to achieve. Okay? So that is the project charter, the project charter. A few points to note about the project charter. Let me just put this together for you so that you've got some reference to what is in it. So at a very high level, your project charter could consist of the following. Your project charter could consist of high-level scope. Always think high level when you're dealing with the charter. High level scope. What exactly is this all about? What do we want to get done? High level schedule. In other words, milestones. What are the dates for delivering this? what are some of the high-level risks that could affect this endeavor? What about a list of stakeholders, key people that will have to be involved? See? And beyond this, you also need to think about any high-level requirements. So on and so forth. You see what I'm saying? So, high-level risks, high-level schedule, and all of this stuff is pretty much listed in the PMBOK guide. You see, this is why when you read the PMBOK guide, you have to read it with eyes of understanding. See? Read it with eyes of understanding and make sure you apply it bit by bit. And it's going to help you. It really is going to help you. So, under Project Charter on page 81, it states, these things are included in the Project Charter. Project purpose, why we're doing it. So, I like what the CDC said. You know, going back to what the CDC said, you got to think about those 5 whys or 5 W's. 5 W's, the what, the when, the where, the who is the project manager, who is the project manager, who is the project sponsor, what is the project about, when, what are the milestones, where is the geographic location, and why are we doing this? Remember, your business case is going to tell you the why. Your benefits management plan is going to give you an idea of the benefits, which help you understand the why. See? The 5 W's. The 5 W's. See that? So, in addition to this, you also have high-level requirements, high-level project description, boundaries and key deliverables, overall project risk, summary milestone schedule, pre-approved financial resources, key stakeholder list, project approval requirements, what constitutes project success, who decides the project is successful and who signs off on the project, project exit criteria, assigned project manager, and name and authority of the sponsor or other persons authorizing the project charter. At a high level, the project charter ensures a common understanding by the stakeholders of the key deliverables, milestones, and the roles and responsibilities of everyone on the project. Now, in addition to this stuff that we have here, don't forget that another part of developing the project charter is the assumption log. Okay? It's a log of assumptions that could impact the project and a log of constraints that could impact the project. And by assumption, we mean something that is considered to be true without proof. See? High-level and strategic operational assumptions and constraints are normally identified before the project is initiated in the business case, and this will flow into the project charter. Lower level activity and task assumptions are generated throughout the project. So this is going to be lower level assumptions. See that? Lower level assumptions and constraints. So your assumption log is going to capture those lower level ones. The project charter may begin to glean some of those higher level assumptions. So that is pretty much the theory behind the develop project charter process and everything leading up to it, chapters 1, 2, and 3, the definitions, the importance of the environment in which projects operate, and things such as that. Okay? So going back to our idea to put together this park, remember it's a park that we want children to be able to go to with their parents, hang out, those who are old enough on their own, and to have some form of enjoyment so that the community is the better for it. Okay? So that is why we're doing what we're doing in this community. The project charter is but the beginning, of this journey. So when you put your project charter together, there are certain things that you need to think about from a project management perspective. And these should not be looked at as robotically. We don't want to be robots when we address this stuff. We want to address this stuff in a pragmatic fashion that is real world and hands-on. Okay, so I'm going to show you really quickly here a few of the ideas, okay, for this. So when you think about the process of developing the project charter, it's important that for those of you who are really in it for the long haul, your PMPs in the making or your PMPs, just look at the inputs, the tools and techniques and outputs as options. That is exactly what they are. They are nothing but options. And remember what the PMI said about tailoring. So it's important that we do not get bent out of shape regarding the ITTOs. Okay? The ITTOs in the PMBOK guide, we are not meant to apply them in a cookie cutter fashion or in a blind zombie-like fashion. We don't want to do that. For that reason, when you take a look at Develop Project Charter, and I'll just call this DPC for convenience, when you take a look at Develop Project Charter, you need to look at what is going into it as an option. So what is going in here? These are all options. Take a look at this. So Develop Project Charter, the inputs to it, we've already talked about for the most part. You've got your business case, which is under business documents. So business documents. The business documents contains the business case. Also, you need to be thinking about your benefits management plan, in my opinion, even though PMI removed it. You also need to think about agreements. So agreements, in instances where we have an external customer, these agreements could be anything from MOUs, LOIs, contracts, and even verbal agreements. Okay, so think about it. Just think about the logic. Whenever people say they don't understand something, I say think about it. Try to process the logic. If you are working on creating this amusement park, this center for the kids, you need to ask yourself, what is the benefit of doing it? You see? And then you need to ask yourself, is there any contract for this? And if there is a contract, that is a potential input to develop Project Charter, because the contract is going to have key information that can help you create the Project Charter. It's as simple as that. It's really as simple as that. So when you think about the inputs to develop Project Charter, just go real world. The next thing you want to think about is, are there any factors, enterprise, environmental factors that can impact this project or that are relevant to the development of the project charter? And are there any templates or other process assets for this process, that could be relevant to this process? In other words, maybe charters from past projects and all that. See? Then you want to think a little bit further. You want to ask the question, what do I get out? Well, you get your project charter out of this process, and you also get the assumptions log, like I told you about. These are your outputs. Okay? The tools and techniques, various tools and techniques could be applied to this. So I just call these the TTs, tools and techniques. Tools and techniques you have here are expert judgment. You have data gathering, things like brainstorming. Focus groups and interviews can be used to collect information that is relevant to the project charter. You have interpersonal and team skills, which I'll just call ITS. And under interpersonal and team skills, think about it. Different characters, people on this project, people from the city, people from government, community leaders. There are so many interface points, so many points at which people that have an interest in the project could come together, that it makes sense to have good skills. For any project manager that is going on to this project, you want to make sure that they have the skills to pull it off and to synergize and to get stuff done and so on and so forth, And then we have, of course, conflict management and meeting management to effectively manage meetings. So under interpersonal and team skills, you got conflict management, facilitation, meeting management, and last but not least, we have meetings. And when you look at that, it should all come together for you. It should all begin to make sense. Everything, the big picture of everything, like I'm showing you, I'm hoping that at this point, it's beginning to make sense why you do what you do, why you use what you do, So if you're working on a project as big as a park that will affect thousands of lives, you want to have the great skills to keep that project on the straight and narrow. And that is why the PMBOK guide and the PMI are big in terms of project management in the world today. Whenever you talk about who's who in project management, you hear the PMI. This is why, because it gives you a calculated, deliberate method for you to start a project, talking about the states of an entity that I was telling you about, your project management skills and know-how, they're going to take you from this current state, they're going to take you from there to your future state. It's a project that's a vehicle to doing that. And that's why your project manager needs to have impeccable skills and knowledge and, don't forget, tools and great technique. This is why this stuff is needed, because project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project endeavors to get that end result, to get to that end goal. So when you're talking about this project, the playground project, you got to make sure your PM is able to apply knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to get the job done. That's really the name of the game. So that is the very first process of project management. Okay? Now, the more engagement I derive from these videos from our students, it tells me it's adding value to you. So if it's adding value to you, don't forget to share with your friends. Don't forget to pull them in when I've got this showing. And let me know if you find it valuable to your prep and to your journey. This is not a fire drill, so I'm obviously a lot more relaxed. I'm not trying to rush through a bunch of slides, but I'm trying to make sure that you understand what I am showing you, okay? That's the main goal. So we're done with one process, but let's begin to think about this project some more so that we can examine another process. So the stakeholders of this project are not just the community and the people who are building. It also includes the kids. The kids are stakeholders. At some point, we do need to get there, not just buy-in, but we also need to understand from them what they would like, what they think would be valuable. Don't you think? I do. So to do this, we should be thinking about doing some stakeholder identification. And that takes us to our next process. It's called Identify Stakeholders. See that? It's called Identify Stakeholders. Identify stakeholders is where we identify our stakeholders by getting other people who are already stakeholders involved and having them give us some ideas as to who else could be a stakeholder. It is also where you analyze stakeholders that you have identified. So there's a number of things taking place here. You're doing an identification. You're doing an analysis. And you're compiling all of that into a register called a Stakeholder Register. See? And this is done in the PMBOK guide. If you go to chapter 13.1, you see exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go there to chapter 13.1. 13.1. And we want to take a look at the description of what exactly is being done. 13.1. So this dialogue starts off on page 507. But let's read what exactly the PMI say is being done. It says, identify stakeholders is the process of identifying project stakeholders. So who are project stakeholders? The folks you see on the screen here, those kids, they're stakeholders because it's folks that can be impacted, right, by the project, or folks who can impact the project. So it says identify stakeholders is the process of identifying project stakeholders regularly and analyzing and documenting relevant information regarding their interests, involvement, interdependencies, influence, and potential impact on project success. Now, I like this part. It says the key benefit of this process is that it enables the project team to identify the appropriate focus for engagement of each stakeholder or group of stakeholders. See that? Key benefit is that it enables the project team to identify the appropriate focus for engagement of each stakeholder or group of stakeholders. So this is a very valuable process. You do want to identify people that the project could affect or who could be affected by the project, and you want to make sure that you pull them in at the right time in the right way. So going back to our favorite page for today, favorite page, the CDC's page. Let's take a look at what we've got here under stakeholder. So if you follow along, going down, we can see stakeholder analysis. See that? Click on that. And let's open up this stakeholder analysis document that they've got here. And this is what it looks like. And you can see they've got a stakeholder analysis log here. It's pretty much a stakeholder register. They call it something different, but you've got the name of a stakeholder, title, contact, communication types, how you would communicate with this individual, internal status meeting, external status meeting, quick stand-up meeting, whatever the case. The communication vehicles, is it email, is it meeting, what is it? What is your stake in the project? And any comments to clarify. And you got information here as you hover over the box, what exactly you're putting in these columns. So I think this is a great tool for project managers. But before you get to the stakeholder analysis, of course, you already know who the stakeholders are, and then you're going to do your analysis. And your analysis could consist of an approach that's like this. You want to use something called a power interest grid. Your power interest grid is pretty much a grid on the X and Y axis. You can see like that. And we can make 4 quadrants in this. So going up like that, we could say that is power. So you have power going that way. And then we can have interest going that way. And your stakeholders, the actual people who you are plotting here, you could have a stakeholder A there, B, C, D, E. For example. So what do we do with these quadrants? These quadrants are used to signify groups and actions. So we got a group of people who are in the low power, low interest. Here, what do? We monitor these folks. What about up here? We keep satisfied. They got a high level of power, low level of interest, but high level of power. Keep them satisfied. What about people here? People here, you want to manage close Remember, they've got a high level of power and a high level of interest. Manage them close. And people here, they are very interested in the project, but they don't have that much power. Keep informed. Now, it's very possible for your CEO to start off here, but as your project begins to give nightmares to her, she could very well end up being very interested in your project. For example, so what does this tell you? This tells you that as the project proceeds through time, you could have many variations of this grid. Someone could be here, then the next thing you know, they're here, and then maybe in a different phase, they're here. Things just happen. Okay, things happen as your project goes through its life, its cycle of life. So what I'm trying to show you here is that this is a fluid and dynamic document that can change. It can change through the passage of time. All right? Keep that in mind. So I showed you the CDC's Stakeholder Analysis Log as you saw it, but the words that people use most times for that is, they just call it a Stakeholder Register. So other people would refer to this as a register. Just keep that in mind, a Stakeholder Register. And I'll show you an example of that. So let's look at a Stakeholder Register for this fictitious project. Here we go. So if you take a look at this fictitious project, you can see the name, the position, the company, contact role, all of this information regarding stakeholders, their power, their interest, see, their expectation, all that. See. So as you go through this process here, you're ultimately going to get to this document or this document by the time you've put in all the information into your Stakeholder Register. Okay, so that's your Stakeholder Register for you. And to round this off, remember, just remember, stakeholders, the definition of a stakeholder is anyone that has a stake in the project, anyone who can affect the project, anyone whose interests are going to be impacted by the project. Those folks are stakeholders. Okay? And with that said, we have come to the end of our first section. We wanted to tackle initiating first, so you kind of get an idea of some of the thought processes, some of the things that you should be doing as a project manager who is trying to initiate a project. You want to do develop project management, develop project charter, and you want to do identify stakeholders. So if you were looking at the PMBOK guide, page 25 in the 6th edition, could change in other editions, what you would find is the table that looks something like this. The table that outlines all the processes. So right now we've done the first column, initiating, and we've talked about develop project charter. And remember, there are 10 knowledge areas, so there's a lot of stuff in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a lot of stuff. And identify stakeholders. So there are 2 processes in initiating, and we covered both. which is good. Now, in closing, I just want to give you the top of the waves. I'm not going to take too much of your time. But in closing, I would like to show you, again, the ITTOs and the flows into the process and what you get out. So let's take a look at that real quick. Again, go to your favorite page for this process. So find the 13.1 image on page 507. So we go back here. Let's begin to jot down. Remember, this is identify stakeholders. Identify stakeholders. Identify stakeholders is going to use what already exists. And it's also going to put you into the future thought of doing this again. Remember, you identify stakeholders not just once, but throughout the project. So as you do this throughout the project, you're going to acquire more inputs. So we have the project charter, we have business documents, we also have the project management plan, because as time goes on, we are going to have more and more documentation, and the project management plan, which contains the stakeholder management plan, or stakeholder engagement plan, I should call it. Stakeholder engagement plan. Your stakeholder engagement plan is going to be developed subsequently in the project, and this plan is going to help you to better identify stakeholders based on what you will learn in the future. So here we have the project management plan. A subset of that is a stakeholder engagement plan. We also have project documents, various project documents, change logs and issue logs we acquire later on. These are going to help us identify our stakeholders. We also have agreements. Again, remember, this was an input to develop project charter. And we also have EEFs and OPAs. Okay. The major output that I'm going to work on here is my stakeholder register. And then what is used as a tool and technique, we have expert judgment, we have data gathering, we have data analysis, we have data representation, and last but not least, we have meetings. Okay, so I really just wanted to call out this especially. These are very noteworthy as inputs. The fact that we have agreements coming in is also noteworthy. Some business as usual tools and techniques, and boom, you got your stakeholder register. So we've talked about two concepts: developing the charter, kicking off this project, and creating the stakeholder register. So I'm hoping that this is of value to you, that you found it to be useful, that now you've got a different perspective or a renewed understanding of what happens on projects and how this documentation is ultimately put together so that the project manager and the team are able to effectively manage the project. Okay. So don't forget to put any questions or comments below if you found it to be helpful, you found it to be useful. And the more people end up viewing this, the more episodes I will likely do. But this is going to be the first of many other episodes in taking a look at this project. And we're just going to go in baby steps, bit by bit. And let me know if you enjoyed it. Take care. Keep on studying your favorite book. Keep studying your favorite book, the PMBOK Guide. And remember, always put a real-world scenario into the mix. A real-world scenario, it always helps. It always helps you look at everything with a different pair of eyes. Okay? Take care and bye for now.